lies. You got to fact check everyone. Stop being so gaga with these people who also, one of them is in pictures with somebody who was convicted, somebody who was responsible for murdering 3 Israeli soldiers. Another one just yesterday after the fawning press conference could not denounce Antifa. So they can't denounce people who are taking down the American flag, ladies and gentlemen, and putting the Mexican flag up in Aurora, Colorado. I'm sick and tired of Customs and Border Protection being denigrated.
I was asking you about the president's words.
And I'm telling you,
are they not the very essence?
No, they're not, and he's not.
Go back?
No, they're not. What he's saying is, no, he explained what he meant by that. Just as you correct yourselves all the time and expand on what you're trying to say, he has a right to, in the press conference yesterday, in the press avail yesterday, and in subsequent tweets, to tell you what he's talking about. He is basically, how is he saying anything different than what a lot of the Democrats were saying about those 4, the squad that hasn't done squat legislatively? How is he saying anything differently than what Democrats were saying on the record and as background off the record last week to a lot of you? You were publishing it a couple short days ago. I'm old enough to remember 4 days ago when Democrats like Congressman Greg Meeks, like Congressman William Lacey Clay, esteemed members of the Congressional Black Caucus, senior Democrats, frustrated in saying that out loud. Maybe they'll primary the one of them. Why are they calling Nancy Pelosi a racist, essentially? So when you throw the word racism around long enough, people get desensitized to it, and that's a shame, because there is racism in this country, and it's real. And there is sexism in this country, and it's real. But when you just throw it around, it comes back to boomerang you, like happened to Pelosi last week. Look, Ayanna Pressley threw shade at Nancy Pelosi yesterday. It's only Nancy Pelosi who said there are only 4 people, there are only 4 votes. A glass of water could have won those districts.
She denounced them. Doesn't the president need to set a higher standard, Kellyanne?
These congresswomen were not natural-born Americans.
No, he doesn't assume that. He said go back and come back.
What was it?
No,
Why did
he's already explained that, and I've already told you. If the president, what you need to look at is what the president has done for people of color, but you don't. You rarely cover it. You're all consumed with this. You did very little. Respectfully, you did precious little last week. You've done precious little when these people are palling around with terrorists. When Ilhan Omar last February and March was saying it's all about the Benjamins, and some people have dual loyalties, that is the definition of an anti-Semitic trope, and she was called out by people like Josh Gottheimer, like Chuck Schumer, like Elliot Engel, Ted Deutsch, whose father won a Purple Heart for fighting against the Nazis in the Battle of Bulge. He's a longtime Democratic congressman from Florida. He gave an emotional plea in the well of the House that maybe you covered, but maybe you've forgotten. I haven't. And he said, who are we that we can't denounce anti-Semitism and call out people by name? They're saying that my father, my father who fought against Nazis in the Battle of the Bulge and got the Purple Heart for that we're disloyal Americans. And that was very upsetting. They couldn't name Ilhan Omar by name. They had this big kitchen sink resolution. Are they doing that today? Ask them. Go up to Capitol Hill today. Ask your colleagues who cover the Hill. Why can't you just denounce Ilhan Omar by name when that's what that resolution started being? It had to be this big kitchen sink resolution that was totally watered down, and yet you're going to mention the president by name. That's pure politics, and America's sick of it.
Respectfully, Kellyanne.
That the Safe Third Country Agreement is still valid, especially when Guatemala itself is going on.
Well, we hope Guatemala will get serious about the Safe Third Country. We'd like to process these asylum claims in those countries and south of our border. It will expedite those claims processing. If Congress is going to fail to act, that they're going to be consumed holding press conferences that all of you, frankly, cover like they're Elvis and like they're the Beatles in 1960, instead of asking them why they voted against humanitarian aid. Those 4 people are the only 4 Democrats to vote against any form of humanitarian aid at the border. They've lost moral authority to scream and preen about the border. They voted against the Democratic aid package, which is why the Democrats, including Pelosi, started coming after them. They scream about the border. They lie about people drinking toilet water. They lie about how these kids got in cages and who started that. I was at the border. I saw no cages. I talked to the families through an interpreter. I saw what I saw. No, and I'm telling you that it would be great if Guatemala helped us. We're willing to help Guatemala, but they need to help also. They need to be honest with these women and these children about how arduous that journey is, about what can't be guaranteed at the end of that journey. They need to be honest with them when they're handing over $5,000, $7,000, I was briefed by DHS the other day, to coyotes and smugglers. And sometimes these women are asked to do worse, to give up worse than $5,000 or $7,000. They need to be honest about the drug trafficking that's coming through the border. And if Congress is not going to do its job, TVPRA, asylum, Flores fix, if instead they're going to hold press conferences instead of trying to help save these kids from getting on this perilous trek to come northward, help them come legally. Help them be one of the 33 million and counting who have emigrated to this country legally. They have no interest in that. Everything is hyper-partisan. Everything is politicized. And respectfully, you should not, as somebody who actually takes tough questions from you, you should start asking them some tough questions. Ask them why they can't denounce Antifa. Ask them why they're palling around and in pictures with terrorists. Ask them why they're saying anti-Semitic things. Ask them why they associate with the words of the people who are anti-American.
On matters of race, as a leader in the country, what is his responsibility on tone, on language? Where would you counsel him on that?
The president said today he doesn't have a racist bone in his body. I've been by his side for over three straight years. People show their truth selves in private often enough. I have never ever heard that man say anything untoward based on race in my experience. And that's very important. Also important is what he's done for communities of color. I know you don't want to cover it very much, but you cannot deny the facts. Not your opinion, the facts. African American unemployment is at an all-time low. Same for Hispanics. 64 or 71-year low among women. This matters to people. It matters to people that we want to fix health care that left 28 million Americans, and a lot of people of color, frankly, without health insurance after the first African American president and his sidekick, Joe Biden, left 28 million Americans with no health care. It's been 10 years since President Obama lied to all Americans, all races, both genders, all ages, all demographic and geographic strata. You can keep your doctor, you can keep your plan. Those were lies. We're trying to fix it, and that ought to matter. There are fewer people of color languishing in prison now because of this president signing into law First Step and Second Chance. There are fewer people not in drug treatment. There are more people in drug treatment. There are more people in housing, in getting skills education. I work on the drug crisis every day. I can show you the statistics, if anybody ever cares to cover them, of how we're helping people of color who have been racked by fentanyl, racked by meth, racked by cocaine, racked by opioids. This president is helping. It's why we're here. It is why we're here.
Respectfully, Kellyanne, speaking of lying, yesterday the president talked...
are being released thanks to the First Step Act, 2,200 people on Friday. Does President Trump plan to do anything specific around that?
Well, he may mention it, and he certainly are happy when people like you mention it because it's relevant. And this actually impacts real people. We've had some of them here at the White House. We've talked to others of them. We've been out where they live talking to them. Some of them were our guests in the First Lady's box at the State of the Union. And when I meet people like Matthew Charles and Alice Johnson who don't have a bitter bone in their body, which is pretty remarkable, I don't know if I would feel the same way if I were languishing in prison long after I paid my debt to society. When Alice Johnson embraces me and has a big smile on her face, I can watch her getting out of that van and running to her family all day long, because that is the greatness of America. And that is why I will always stand here and stand up for the flag and not kneel when I say it. I will call out people who vote against humanitarian aid that's supposed to help the kids and the women they pretend, and you let them pretend and lie they care about. I will always stand up for the military and the veterans and call out people who have voted against $700 billion for them, $716 billion for them. We are now the equivalent of, for some of these people, and not just those four, please. They just represent a very dark element in this country that seems to not respect the military, not respect the veterans, not vote for humanitarian aid. Why is that? I will always stand up. I will always stand up against those people.
That language of dark element.
Oh, please. You guys don't want to cover that. You cover nonsense like the Hatch
Excuse
Act,
me,
like,
Kellyanne.
especially you these days. I'm sorry, Jennifer. I mean, you get a lot of good scoops on personnel here, but not a lot more.
Kellyanne, yesterday the president...
I mean, come on. Ilhan Omar did not make anti-Semitic remarks that led to this resolution
And we
in the House.
covered them extensively.
Oh, please, you did not. Really? Because the March 7th article in the New York Times, I just quoted on 2 back-to-back TV shows. Right. Are you still mentioning it? Are you still mentioning it? Tell me why her name couldn't be in the resolution. Was that resolution not about her? Was Ted Deutsch wrong? Was Ted Deutsch wrong, whose father fought the Nazis in the Battle of the Bulge? Was Ted Deutsch wrong? Is Gregory Meeks wrong? Is William Lacey Clay wrong?
The picture, though, the president said he was going to unify the country.
She's in pictures with somebody who murdered Israeli terrorists.
Are these comments unifying, Kellyanne? Do they live up to that promise?
I think the president's trying to stick up for people who respect the flag, who believe that the military should have pay raises, that veterans should not be spat upon. What are we, the equivalent now of spitting on the veterans when they return from Vietnam? It's just a disgrace. And he's going to call it out. And please march beyond these 4 people who hold press conferences in front of an adoring press that seems afraid to call them out on their lies. Am I going to be the only person afraid to call them out on their lies? The big fact checkers among you, fact check them. Stop being so gaga and besotted with people who got here a couple of months ago. A squad that hasn't done squat except be on magazine covers, except cause trouble and incur the ire of a lot of senior Democratic officials these days. That doesn't go away, what was said about them over the weekend, what was said about them last week. Scaling Woke Back Mountain by Maureen Dowd, a lot of quotes in there by Democrats. That doesn't go away. Nancy Pelosi saying a glass of water could have won their districts, that they're just 4 people, they're just 4 votes. Why did she say they're just 4 votes? Because they're 4 votes against humanitarian aid. And they were attacking her for that.
Speaking of lies, yesterday the president...
Lawmakers make statements that the president doesn't agree with, that he considers lies. Would he tell those white
Yes,
members of Congress
but
to go back to their
remember, most of our conversations don't happen with you around. I'm counselor to the president. A lot of what I tell the president will never reach your ears or eyes. And the same goes for his confidential conversations with people. Absolutely. But this is...
He has told white members of Congress to go back to
He said you're the one injecting race into it now because you want to talk about...
He did actually, because he made the assumption they weren't born here based on their race.
No, he didn't say that.
Then to what countries was he referring?
Are you looking at all of his tweets? Are you looking at his entire record? Because I will cherry pick what each of you have said and made fools out of yourself any day of the week. But I won't, but I could. Just so we're clear. Every human here. Okay, so let's not. Let's not.
Okay. Kellyanne.
And he has called out plenty of people. He has brushed back on plenty of people. People who work for him, people who are on his campaign, people who say they're associated with him, people who you think are associated with him because they leak information they couldn't possibly have because they have very little access to him, and on and on and on. Other people, and Kevin McCarthy said today, or the minority leader in the House said today, when one of their members said something they didn't like, they took action. These women all sit on the committees. They got plum assignments. And they got plum assignments. They missed some of the hearings, but they got plum assignments. And you won't. It's not about them. It's about people who are attacking people for wearing a red hat. It's about all of you rushing to judgment on those poor kids from Covington. They're not even old enough. They're barely old enough to vote. They're not old enough to drink, to, I guess, smoke. I mean, they're kids. They're kids in high school, barely college, and you rushed to judgment because of the hat they were wearing and because there was a Native American there. And I guess you said sorry. I guess you took it back, right? Did you? But Kavanaugh, Covington, we're sick of the rush to judgment on everything. Oh, rush to judgment. 2 years of a rush to judgment of nonsense. Office of Special Counsel.
Kellyanne, speaking, following up.
You should be talking about it.
Following up on the previous question, if the president was not telling these 4 congresswomen to return to their supposed countries of origin, to which countries was he referring?
What's your ethnicity?
Why is that relevant to this conversation?
No, because I'm asking you a question. My ancestors are from Ireland and Italy.
Kellyanne, my own ethnicity is not relevant to the question I'm asking.
No, it is, because you're asking about, he said originally. He said originally from.
No, I am asking you.
And you know everything he has said since, and to have a full
So are you
saying
that the president was telling the Palestinian
the president's already
American
commented
to go
on
back
that.
to go back to the occupied territories?
The president's already commented on that, and he said a lot about this since that one tweet. He's put out a lot of tweets, and he made himself available to all of you yesterday.
He has not. No, just to the pool.
Yes, he has. He's tired. A lot of us are sick and tired of this country, of America coming last, to people who swore an oath of office. Sick and tired of our military being denigrated. Sick and tired of the Customs and Border Patrol people, protection people I was with, who are overwhelmingly Hispanic, by the way, in McAllen, Texas. Sick and tired of them being... No, you don't understand, because you didn't go. Being criticized, being doxxed. By a bunch of Hollywood D-listers who have nothing else to do but sit on their asses on Twitter all day and try to dox brave men and women who are diving into the Rio Grande to save people who are drowning, who are taking other people's babies into custody and diapering them and feeding them and looking the other way while people are running across with drugs.
I would still like you to answer the question,
to
which countries was the president referring? To which countries?
How confident are you on the Mark Esper company?
Well, very confident. He's excellent. He's completely qualified to be the Secretary of Defense. And as Leader McConnell said, we need to get a confirmed Secretary of Defense quickly. He's there. submitting himself to questions. Obviously, he's been confirmed before. So let's hope people aren't playing politics and we get Mark Esper, who's really been a distinguished public servant.
Is Ohio a foreign country?
Thank you, guys.
Kellyanne, your husband wrote about this. Any reaction?